Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the Warehouse Underground podcast. I am Ben, the host of the show, and I have a very awesome guest for the show today. I'm very excited to chat with her. Her name is Leah Clement. She is a market development manager for a staffing firm called iJility. Now, when I say staffing firm, I don't mean the traditional run-of-the-mill staffing firm like a lot of people in this industry are used to. Oh, no, iJility is way more in-depth than that. They're way more comprehensive. And there's going to be a lot of cool things that we talk about today on the show about iJility, but also just the staffing industry in general, because I have a lot of questions about that to see what goes on the other side of the fence. Not only that, she is vice president of programs for the Council of Supply Chain Management Professionals with the Atlanta Roundtable, so the Atlanta, Georgia division. And me and her have done several networking events. She's very well connected in the industry. She's very engaging person to talk to. I think you'll really like her. And oh, by the way, she's a former Marine. So if you can believe that, I'm a former Air Force officer, so we have that in our background as well. Very excited to have her on the show. And with that, I will bring her on. Leah,
Hi,
welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on. And how are you today?
I am really excited to be here. I'm not really sure if I know who that girl was you were just describing, but she sounds fun. So thank you for that. But super happy to be here and excited to talk to you and to talk about iJility and staffing in general.
Awesome. Yeah. So full disclosure, just so the audience knows, like you and I have met in person,
Mhm.
which I don't always get a chance to meet people in person that I network with on LinkedIn or online or whatever. So we had done a networking event online at Supply Chain Social. Shout out to Kevin Lawton and Nathan Cheney, by the way, free plug for those guys. And I remember you're like, hey, well, I'm gonna be near your area tomorrow. I'm gonna come by your office. And I'm like, oh yeah, sure, but never didn't think anything of it. Didn't think it. And sure enough, you show up at my office
Lo and behold.
lunchtime and come back in there. And so we have a chat for about 15 or 20 minutes in my office, which I thought was really cool. So I appreciate that. But let's dive right into this.
Sure.
You are in the staffing world, and in the warehousing world, we use staffing agencies all the time.
Mhm.
And one of the, I don't want to say knocks on staffing agencies, but one of the things that people will say is there's so many of them, but I don't understand what the difference is. I mean, aren't they at the end of the day all just pulling from the same pool of people? And so what makes iJility different in the market? What's the competitive advantage that iJility has, and what is it all about?
Sure. I can see this is clearly not your first rodeo because that is one of the very first questions that comes out of everyone's lips since I started in staffing back in 1998 in traditional staffing. That's the first question. So, wow. Are they pulling from the same pool of people? Generally speaking, I would say yes. I would say that the traditional staffing model, which I feel like I can speak to because I did it for many years, the traditional staffing model is we build an office and we get out into the marketplace and we start trying to connect with and speak to all of the industries in that marketplace. Oftentimes, there's not a specific designation. Your makeup of the area makes up your makeup in the staffing office. So if it is at a 80% industrial area, you may have 80% industrial, meaning manufacturing and or distribution or warehousing, and then you may have another 20% call center, whatever the mix is in your area. And are they pulling from the same pool of people? Generally speaking, yes. Generally speaking, what makes iJility different? What's our competitive advantage? Is that we're a fully remote company. And that means that resources are dedicated to our customers. So we don't go into a market and work on immediately saturating that market. We determine who we are. Let me say it this way, which we decide who we want to call on, who we're really hoping to do business with. Reputation in the market has a lot
Yeah.
to do with that. So we start calling on those people in those particular markets. And if we have the opportunity to engage with them, then we have dedicated resources. So that is recruitment resources, dedicated operations resources, and we can get into what all that looks like later. But to answer the question of competitive advantage from that pool of people, it's all dedicated. So when you work with iJility, you have a recruiter that's working on these jobs for you and for only you. When you work with iJility, you have operations that are focused on these functions for you and only for you. So there's not that desire to saturate the market in the same way. We want
Yeah.
to really focus on the task at hand with the customer.
Yeah, and one of the things that I saw on the iJility website that I thought was really cool, like traditionally when you go to get staffing or you go to get temporary employees, you just say, I need 10 or I need 15 or I need 30 or whatever the number is.
Right.
And then that's kind of the end of it. Like, yeah, there might be a dedicated person that is kind of in charge of them, that oversees them, but you just get the people. But
Yeah,
on the iJility website, they were talking about things about there might be industrial engineers that come in and do a full analysis of what's going on at your site, and they're really in depth, like they are really bought in at a much deeper level than just,
absolutely.
hey, here's 15 people that show up, like teach them how to pick or pack. No, it's
Right.
like engineers involved and metrics and rates, and that seemed to be a differentiator for me. Like I'm not used to that.
That's a huge differentiator. And again, coming from traditional staffing, we're out there. You say you need 10 people, you need 20 people. You give us kind of the what they need to be doing, what kind of skills they have. They screen them in the best they can. We do the best we can. We send them off to you. You deal with whatever you got. If they work for
Yeah,
you, fantastic. Yay for me. If they don't work out for you, I will jam some more folks in your building. And in
yeah,
fact, I'll probably jam some extras in there because we want to make sure if you ask for 10, I know I'm going to have a few people that don't show up. So I'm probably going to send you
attrition.
12. And
Yeah,
then you're probably not going to turn away the two. You're going to keep them because, who knows what's going to happen, right? So
yeah,
my job in traditional staffing is to get as many bodies into your building. You deal with it. It's your problem once they cross that threshold. Now, with iJility, you mentioned that we had the engineers and all of those other uh, capabilities. Absolutely, we partner with our customers, and several of our customers are on cost per unit billing, which is a whole
mhm,
other conversation we can certainly get into. But our engineers help us to understand what their current cost is and all of the steps in the process to get to that current cost. We verify that with our customer, and then we set our rates from there, guaranteeing a savings for our customers. The cool
yeah,
thing is, another competitive advantage is that our employees are able to earn they're able to earn incentive. So they get additional income through
ah,
incentive. And they do that by crossing these three thresholds. They've got to have over 100% productivity. They've got to have zero quality infractions, none.
mhm,
And they got to show up to work every day. You can take a day off, but you have to schedule it, plan
yeah,
it, because we're labor planning based upon volume needs. So we
yeah,
need to be able to create that plan. But in order to do all those things, we have to have a robust training,
mhm,
leadership on site that directs the flow of work to those employees. And those are just some of the competitive advantages. There's so many, but those are a few of the right off the bat competitive advantages that
yeah.
iJility brings.
Yeah, I really like that because it's like now you have skin in the game. I mean, the
100%.
your staffing partner has skin in the game in terms of the performance of the people that you get, the
Right,
product, for lack of a better term, right?
right,
Where traditional, there's no real skin in the game. It's just, hey, we have a bad crop. These people aren't meeting standards. We're sorry. Next. And really, you just say, oh well, I'm going to go use another staffing agency, but that gets back to the question, aren't they all the same? So to have that skin in the game, to have that much deeper kind of understanding and desire,
Right.
I think is really different in
Right.
the market today. So I appreciate that.
Well, you
Now let
said
me go
partner,
ahead.
and that's the difference. Most companies, we use the word partner very, very loosely. Um, and a partner really does partner with you. It's not a, if they don't work out, that's your problem. If they don't work out, if they don't have the skills, that's your problem. No, as a partnership, it's my problem to
Yeah.
ensure that you have everything you need right at the outset.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you this. I mean, I know that I have seen you post about this
Mhm.
on LinkedIn, and I have mixed feelings on it. But
Okay.
one of the things that you'll hear from senior leaders at some companies out there, and I've been a part of this, is we don't want to use any type of temporary labor force. We don't, we're not for that. We want everybody who's hired on because we want them all bought in. We want them to be engaged. We want them to understand our vision and our mission of our company and all those things. And I agree to a certain extent. That is noble. But do you see any downsides in that philosophy when people have that? And I know you've heard that.
Absolutely. I've heard it. I think this is something that's been talked about since the dawn of time. Um, it's something we
Yeah.
always hear, and it almost feels like we get to it and then we move away from it, and then oh no, we want all full time employees, and then we move back away from it because it's never ever fully possible. Um, in very very rare circumstances do I see where this it really works and it's possible. I hear it all the time. Couple of things. First of all of the iJility employees are full-time employees of iJility. But then, so we're able to set the culture, mirror the culture, set the tone for our employees, and take care of them in a way that makes sense for them, for us, for our customer. But I think, sometimes leadership is so in love with their culture, but does it always make it down to the warehouse floor? Um,
Yeah.
does it
Not
always?
always.
No. And
Yeah.
a lot of times those culture initiatives they're not bottom up initiatives, they're top down initiatives.
Mhm.
And when your leadership is just enamored with the culture, and rightfully so, on paper it's amazing, but when the rubber hits the road and you've got these floor level warehouse employees that are responsible for X amount of productivity, ensuring that they meet every single SLA every single time, sometimes the culture gets a little wonky for a lack of better words. It's just harder to keep that culture when you have such fierce deadlines ahead of you.
Yeah.
And um I think most companies think that they have a better offer in working for a big name company, the benefits that brings. But one of the things that I see more often than not, especially in, warehouse positions, these folks are trying to provide for their families and make a
Yeah.
life. They need the money.
Yeah.
They need to make a livable income. And so we want to provide a good culture. That is always goal. Absolutely. We want to be a part of a good culture. That is always the goal. But really, these folks want to get paid, and they want to make as much money as they can, as quickly as they can. And if they do that full time for somebody else, full time for us, you know, they're open to either or, but they're
Yeah.
after making money, and that's one of the advantages of iJility is we're able to pay them through an hourly wage through and incentive without additional cost to our customer.
Yeah. And one thing that, I mean, speaking from a warehouse distribution person, I've had a lot of managers over the years tell me that, hey, we don't we don't like the idea of being hamstrung when we hire somebody off the street to work
Mhm.
in a warehouse, because the skills need that they need to show don't necessarily reveal themselves in an interview Like in a
No.
traditional interview sense, if you're interviewing for a project manager or marketing or whatever,
Right.
like an office setting it is, you can usually get it to the surface what type of person they are in the
Right.
interview. But that's just not how it doesn't work that way in the warehouse. And so a lot of managers will say, I really like the idea of having a temp labor force, not only for the benefits that you said, but also because I can use it as sort of like a tryout
A
period.
proving ground. Right.
Yeah, a proving ground. It's not
Yeah.
necessarily a tryout. That's kind of a
You-
bad word. But
Well, it
you get a
is what
better
it is.
idea
Yeah,
and assessment of people's strengths and weaknesses and know where they can
absolutely.
fit in the future.
And what is it? You would probably know this number better than I would, but when somebody walks in the door in a warehouse, they are expected to be at a certain level of productivity just right off the bat. And anywhere I've heard from 50 to 70%. And then it takes X amount of time to get them to the next level and to the next level and to the next level.
Yeah.
And when you are wearing so many hats running your warehouse, you're worried about every department, every person, every heartbeat in that building is of
Yeah.
concern to you, right? And so we are able to take just a little bit of that pressure off by looking at maybe a particular work cell. And now you don't have to, that's not a plate you have to continue to spin.
Yeah.
Correct. We can take that pressure off and allow someone like you to go back to focusing on those things that those vision type things, those ROI initiatives. And you can trust that your partner over here has got this area on lock.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I think, like I said, I mean, a noble vision. I don't fault companies for having
not
that.
at
I
all.
understand why they do. But I'm not sure it's the best method for the demographic of folks that are working in the
Right.
warehouse. I mean, maybe if over time you can get enough people and they are very well versed and they're engaged, but it's just there's a lot of turnover in this industry. There's a lot of
Right.
hiring needs that need to happen. Like it's
Right.
constantly fluctuating with the staff out there, and at some point you're going to have to use, I think,
Right.
a firm,
Yeah. And
staffing firm to help you out.
I think if you can get if your turnover is incredibly low, and if you don't have a lot of seasonality, perfect.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it's quite difficult.
So what about this though? One of the things that you'll hear a lot of, I hear a lot of, and you probably have too, is, hey, the staffing agencies are telling us that our range of pay needs to be this, and some decision maker in the company does not like that. They think it should be lower. The staffing agency says it needs to be this, and we need to be there because that's how we find the good caliber of employee. That's what they expect. But the pushback that you'll hear is it won't make a difference. The only things that's going to happen is we're going to get the same person in here that we would have got anyway. We're just going to be paying them $3 or $4 more an hour. So you hear that a lot. But what say you about that?
That is a really loaded question because on the one hand, the staffing agency, this is what they do. So they should have a firm grasp on what their market will bear. Should. And this is also where something like a solution like iJility's cost per unit solution can really shine. But yeah, they should know what the market will hold, and they should know what skills each step up in pay should render, right? What type of employee that should provide. But again, like you've heard from several, it's just going to be more expensive people doing the same thing. It's not always just about pay. Pay is important, but it is you always want to be in an area that makes sense where you can get the right skill set, the right employees. But you also don't want to price yourself too high out of a market where you are chasing your tail. You're just not going to find those folks. That's one of the things that we do, and I think we do really well when we look to enter a market, is we do a full study of that market. We determine what's the market going to bear, what What is the competition paying? What are, for example, we're in Atlanta, we're in Metro Atlanta. In a city like Atlanta, there are, I don't know how many counties are part of our metro now. A long time ago, it was like a 10 county metro. Now it's like 20 some odd counties.
It's
So you
growing.
could have, it's ridiculous. So you could have where you are in Gwinnett that has a huge difference from one end of Gwinnett to the other. $5 difference here to there for the same skill set. So it's hard. It's kind of to find that sweet spot. Now, if you don't have the right solution, the right training, then no, you're just paying extra money and getting the same thing. That's where, again, I said the CPU solution really shines. A couple of reasons is because in a cost per unit solution, that pay rate is baked into the cost of the actual unit. So we have been able to raise the hourly rate of our employees while still creating savings for our customers in that unit cost, that direct labor unit cost.
Yeah.
So that's where that type of solution really shines. But also, when you get on site, what's your training look like? What's your onboarding look like even before the training? What's the the interview? What are are the skills being discussed correct? Do we have an accurate description? Do we have the right onboarding? Do we have the right orientation? Do we have the right training and the ongoing training? Once you start putting all of those things together, you're really getting a surprisingly well-rounded employee.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I am always a big fan of being in about the top 60, 70% of the market. And we have had to raise pay rates for our customers in big ways, in surprisingly big ways. But again, with the unit cost, with a cost per unit solution, it kind of gets baked in and they still are able to see that cost savings. So it's really just a huge win.
Yeah. And that's like, it's like, usually you will see the person that is kind of giving that feedback or that pushback, not always, but in some cases is someone that's not directly connected with the warehouse. It might be like a CFO or a CEO, and like where they're pulling this information from, who knows? I mean, your guess is as good as mine, because they're not. I know they're not connected with the market, like what's going on with the hourly labor market for general labor or warehouse. Like they're not.
Right.
It's dynamic. I mean, it's constantly changing due to many different factors. And yeah, I get it. The temp agency or the staffing agency is trying to make money too, but their finger is on the pulse, right? Like they
Absolutely. It
know
should be.
what's happening.
It absolutely should be. And there's also, I think we're also turning the corner from a time when warehousing and distribution was it was the cost of doing business. It wasn't it wasn't a moneymaker.
Cost center. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. And so I think we're also starting to see that shift, but it's, big boats turn slow. And we can see in fulfillment, they're quicker on the uptake with that, right?
Yeah.
But in some of the business to business distribution, it's a slower turn.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just like in the 80s and 90s, it was like that, like how you described. Just a warehouse, product goes there, put box off on shelf, take box off shelf, ship to customer. I mean, 4 to 6 weeks to delivery. But now you got all this like technologies coming on and just like lean and all these things that really are driving costs out of the DCs and the FCs. So it's not as much of a cost center anymore. No. I think some companies look at their fulfillment as an actual competitive advantage now.
Absolutely.
That they're selling, and you're a part of that. Like when you partner up with that, you're a part of that competitive advantage too. Right. iJility is.
And look at some of like the re-commerce centers. That is a money maker.
Yeah.
If you have a really good returns program and a re-commerce program that's maybe a part of that, your returns now that were the dirty, dusty, gross costs a lot of money, and we have to do it because we have to do it, not because we want to do it. And now those can be profitable. So everything's changing, and it's changing fast. It's really exciting.
Yeah. So let me ask this question. I mean, and you kind of already talked about this. You brought this up in your previous question, but I kind of want to know from your end, your side of the fence, what are the things that matter to an employee or to a talent, to a potential employee when they decide what company to go to? Because inside the company, for them, it's all about their culture. Like everyone that is out there should be begging to come here. We are the best thing since sliced bread. We're the best company, and everyone should just want to come here and be a part of it. I'm being a little bit sarcastic, but you get
a little,
it.
but not much.
Right. But from the perspective of the person out there, like what matters to them? Obviously, pay is the big thing. I mean, they want to work and live indoors, so they want to get paid. But outside of that, is it schedule, work, relationship with manager, the type of work? Like, what are the things that matter to them? Like break rooms.
Those are all important things, and
Yeah.
I think pay is king. But outside of that, I think we're still people, and we still want to be a part of something. We still want to be treated in a manner that we feel is appropriate, which is appropriate. We feel like, or I think people want to be seen, heard, and understood. I think there's some basic psychological needs that we're still looking for. Cash is king, but if we provide the environment, the training, the ability for an employee to progress, to become promoted, to earn more through their own effort, we show them that it can be done, how to do it, and empower them to do it, and then let them do it. I think those are huge. In warehousing, you're not going to get away from some of the things, like it's hot in the summer, it's cold in the winter. We cannot change those things.
Part of it.
We those are always going to be a part of the game we're in, right? So I think having nice facilities is wonderful. I love to see our customers that have good facilities, but even above that, it's having a relationship with their leadership where, like I said, they're seen and they're heard. And that's not something that happens immediately. They don't walk in the door and understand that. And that happens with time. And again, with the right interview, understand the job description being correct, the orientation being on point, and them understanding how to be successful and being empowered to do that. Those are the things. And those are not the things we know when we walk in the door, but those are the things that become so important. And you feel it if you're a new person and you walk into an environment and people are kind of grumbly, and you feel it immediately. But when you walk into a place where folks are empowered, you also feel that immediately.
Yeah, and it takes time to
reveal.
It takes time. It takes time to reveal that.
Yes.
And that to circle back, which is a term I hate. Circle back
We're
on
gonna
a
do
point.
it.
I'm gonna say it. Like my fine jar is right here. Here goes my. But no, like to come back to the point that we already brought up. Usually the staff, the warehouse manager, and the leaders they like the culture that they've set, and they want to protect that culture, and they want to keep it. And so they're like, hey, it takes time for us to decide if this person who is coming in here is going to be a good culture fit for us. Right. If you make us hire them on right off the street and now they're full time and they turn out to be a bad culture fit 2-3 weeks later, now we're in a tough spot. So I think, I think all this, no one wants to work in a dump.
No.
But at the same time, like I think people care about, at the hourly level and the warehouse manager level, those folks care about something different than maybe the CEO and the COO of the company care about. So. And they know how to speak that language.
That's what we hear time and time again. That they, again, it's just this weird's not the right word. It's a base psychological need to
Yeah.
be understood and to be known, and to feel as though you can contribute to something. And those are the things that make a culture magic. And those are the
Yeah.
things that keep somebody wanting to stay. And if you are able to, again, show them how to make more money, show them how to get promoted, and then empower and equip them, and then set them free to do it, it's fire.
Yeah.
I should put
Now,
something in the jar for that. I hate it when people say that, fire.
fire. You said fire. It's like
I
my
said
sixth
fire.
grader. He says that a lot. That's a new term. I'm always learning new stuff from him. Riz and fire, and I gotta get
Oh,
that stuff into the podcast.
yeah, there you go.
But let me ask this question to you. So, like, to learn more about what happens on your side of it, from me, if I'm a warehouse leader and I put in a request or an order from a staffing firm, hey, I would like to have 15 people come in. So I only see my side of it.
Right.
So I only see my request that I put out there. But you, obviously, on the other side, you're fielding them all these different requests from all these different organizations. So how do you determine, like, what company gets what people and how many of them they get? Because that seems like it could be a very complex and layered
It could
thought
be.
process to
It
arrive at
could
that.
be. Yeah, it could be. In traditional staffing, it's margin and rules. Um, with iJility, it is, I mentioned way at the beginning that we're dedicated. So how we determine who goes to a site is we recruited that person for that site. They're either recruited in that site or they're recruited out of the funnel completely. So every single person that we screen for ABC company is for ABC company. And so it's a little different for us. In traditional staffing, the years I spent in traditional staffing, we were kind of doing an open call for all these different employees for all these skills that were similar. So, you may do an open call for warehouse, and that may include pick, pack. It may include somebody in shipping. It may, it could include general non-equipment roles. And we would say, okay, so ABC company needs 10 people and they pay X amount of dollars, and XYZ company needs 10 people and they pay X amount of dollars. And I recruited 15 people and I've got 20 slots to fill. Obviously the employee can choose if there's a distance issue or what have you, if one's closer than the other. But really it comes down to pay rate and margin, and to where the staffing company is going to send those employees to. And kind of that's part of why I think that the old way is kind of a broken model, simply because we have now major accounts teams that are out there in the staffing world, the traditional staffing world, who are out there targeting these major employers, negotiating pay rates and markups and in a cost plus type model. And then they send that into a branch level. Well, the branch has got their own sales team out on the streets and their own recruiters recruiting. And so then they add this additional work to the branch to fill these other jobs that are, because they're major accounts, they're almost always at a lower margin, sometimes at a lower pay rate, not all the time, but definitely 90% of the time are at a lower margin. And so someone has signed an exclusive contract and they're not getting exclusive people.
Yeah.
They're just kind of thrown into the mix. And that's having the dedicated resources. You just don't compete with that anymore.
Yeah. Now, do you wait until you get requests from companies for people, or do you try to get ahead of it and actively recruit and kind of actively bring people in around the clock and then kind of push them on facilities? Like, hey, I have some good, like, how does that work? Is it proactive or is it reactive, or is it, I guess, a little bit of both?
It's always can be a little bit of both, because there's always going to be a one-off, especially in the times we're living in, where volumes are cuckoo crazy. We don't understand, whatever happened this time last year is completely blown out the window because of the way, especially in fulfillment with social media marketing and influencer marketing. So some of those metrics that we would typically use to understand volume are getting kind of blown away.
Yeah.
So there is some reactivity in that, But when we're in partnership with our customer, we have we're studying what their volume shifts have been, when that volume hits. We're setting our own head count, so we're very proactive in that way. We're not waiting for our customer to come to us and say, "This is the expectation. I need you to set the head count." We're actually looking at the volume ahead of time and determining what that head count needs to be. And so it's not even really a conversation anymore with us to say we need X amount of people. It's, hey, we see some we got more orders in on Tuesday than we've ever gotten in before. So we're talking in terms of volume and not head count. And in a cost per unit model, we are accountable to the volume. We're accountable to the productivity, the output of our employees. So we're gonna handle the volume.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
I mean that's different. I mean,
it's
that's different.
it is. God bless our operators. They're amazing.
Yeah. But I mean, that's how big time fulfillment centers and big time distribution centers, I mean, that's how they run. I mean, it's a cost per unit basis. They track
Mhm.
all their metrics. I mean, if you're traditional warehousing and that maybe it doesn't have as much technology in place, that might not be to that level. But yeah, I mean, you got to be ready to kind of speak the language that the
Right,
ops manager is speaking when it
right,
comes to those type things because they matter to them. So
right.
speaking of managers, I mean, what do you think about? Um, do you think that it is a good thing for potential candidates to have to come on site for like an interview with the warehouse management, with the floor leads? Like, do you think that that's useful, or do you think that no, that's really just overkill? That's not necessary. We kind of can handle all that on our end. We've been doing this long enough to know they're not a good fit. What do you think?
I think that's a yes. There's a yes and to that answer to that. When we're first starting an engagement with a customer, they are the expert. They are 100%
Yeah,
the expert. So we have to learn from them, and so we're learning from them who they feel is a good fit, and we are learning. Keyword: we are learning. I think that for the warehouse level, for all of those positions within a warehouse, I think eventually, very quickly, it's overkill. I think that we have
yeah,
leadership on site that is rolls up under their leadership in the same way their operations team would, whatever role within that operations team would. So we trust those people to make informed hiring decisions, and they trust our recruiters to make informed hiring decisions, so that when somebody walks in the door, that they are confident that this is the right person in the first place. So we
yeah,
trust our own leadership. Now, because we have operations leaders on site that again roll up under our customers operations leadership, then for those types of hires, sure, we encourage you to go ahead and interview that person. Some of our customers that have been with us a while, they don't feel the need to, because they trust our
mhm,
judgment, and we've
mhm.
we've we've shown them time and again that we
Build up
get
to
it.
that level.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
if we're hiring a OM, or we have some sites that need a general manager level leadership, by all
mhm,
means, jump in and help us
yeah,
make that decision with the interview.
yeah. Now, what do you think about you see this a lot in this industry where people will take a second job. Like I have my main day job, but then I just found this warehouse or this fulfillment center, and they were hiring for a night shift, and I looked at that as an opportunity to get money. Or another thing that is emerging in the industry now is the gig economy,
Mhm.
for lack of a better term, where hey, I'm so hard up for staff to come to my facility that I'm going to allow people to basically work whatever schedule they want. They just punch in on like an app that I have, and they say, "Hey,
Uh-huh.
I can be there from 1 to 7." And the thought process is, well, that's not a normal standard day, but it's better than nothing, right? So, do you have? I mean, what do you feel about people that you represent that are kind of doing it as a second job, and what do you think about the kind of the rise of that gig economy right thing? Because a lot of managers out there don't like it. They like to have a very traditional, this is my staff
Sure.
and these are the hours, but it is starting to emerge out there in the industry a little bit.
I cannot speak in an educated way about what our employees are doing. I have not heard from our recruitment team that we have a lot of people that are taking additional gig work in this manner. Now, who knows? Maybe they might be out there door dashing or something like that. Don't know. But I've not heard from our recruiting team that we have a lot of warehouse or manufacturing gig workers that are doing that in addition to working for iJility. One of the reasons is because we do give them the opportunity to create that additional income. Why go out and work somewhere else when I can increase my own pay where I am with the same amount of hours, just through my own effort, and paying attention and doing a good job. But I think it's a really loaded question. I know that. Geez,
I don't want to be known for that. Sorry.
no, it's good. It's good.
Yeah.
I like it. I've met someone through the Atlanta Roundtable, and he actually was a track speaker at Edge in the warehousing and distribution tracks that has a gig software and a shift swap app. So both sides of that. I know when, in my conversations with him, the shift swap works really good for full-time employees. And it is literally to swap around shifts, or somebody wants to take an extra time off, and, so they can move those shifts around easily without messing up a master schedule. Cool. That sounds brilliant.
Yeah.
I struggle with gig work in these environments because, safety, that's a first concern to me.
Yep.
Productivity. So when I think about somebody who's looking for gig work, it feels to me like literally to plug a hole.
Yeah.
So if you have the environment where somebody stands on a line and watches those boxes and maybe straightens them out every so often, sure, I think that would make sense. I don't see it in any of the applications that or any of our customers. I don't see where it could actually make sense.
Yeah.
But if you can make it work,
yeah,
maybe.
I'm kind of with you. I see both sides of it. Like, I've used this before during COVID because labor was so difficult to find.
Oh, I bet.
And we found that we could get in people, college students who were available during a certain amount of time. And then also we had in some like parents, moms and dads, who were say, hey, my child is in elementary school, but it goes from 8 to 2:30, and I want to make some money. Can I come in during that time while they're at school? So they would do like little 4 or 5 hour days. And for the right person, if they were the right person, and it worked out good. But it's one of those things, I think, where conceptually the idea sounds great.
Yeah.
But then people forget about all of the unintended consequences that can come from it down the line. Like you said, safety and productivity, they're not trained, they're not engaged, all these things. So it's always felt to me like great idea in theory, maybe for special all-star cases. And those are the ones that always get talked about online and in the media and everything. But for the rest of the reality, it doesn't necessarily match up with that.
Right. And I just can't help but think, when you had to use that in COVID, when you got a new gig worker in, what was their productivity like in general, but definitely
Not
first
good.
day productivity, second day productivity? Do they come back?
Yeah. And so what happened is it's very difficult to hold them accountable for poor performance because you're so hard up for labor that somebody is better than nobody. And so it's hard for the managers to do that because okay, well, they didn't perform, so they get let go. Well, now we don't have somebody here, right? Now my staff is working overtime again. So then it has this effect where everybody else who may have been a strong performer looks at this and is like, well, hey, why should I be busting my hump in here and out producing everybody when the average that this person is hitting is good enough now? And so it really brought in some leadership challenges. I understand the leadership concept and all that for the people out there listening. That's a factor. But you also have to really just address the like brass tacks of the reality of people and human nature and how they respond to incentives and all those type things. And And so, I think the gig economy, I think, rose a little bit during that time, but I think it's starting to fade back down a little bit. But I just wanted to get your thoughts on it as
Yeah.
a
I mean, I
staff.
hate to say, I hope it's kind of tamping back down just because
Yeah,
to me, it's just a little scary from safety standpoint alone.
yeah,
Um, Again, I can see some applications where it would make sense in some manufacturing environments where maybe you're just receiving something off of a line. I can see where
mhm,
that could make sense. Still a little scary, lots of moving parts, lots of machinery, you know, but I can see where it could make sense, but not in the environments where we live, which is, warehousing, distribution, fulfillment, things like that. It doesn't make sense.
yeah. All right, so last question. So
Okay.
2025 and beyond, what do you want people to know about agility? Like what's on the horizon? What's the growth? What's the new stuff? Are things looking good for the company? Like what's your takeaway that you want for the audience?
Oof. Okay, my takeaway for the audience. First of all, we are poised for growth. We are excited. We have several cities that we are planning to move into in 2025. So we're super excited about the growth, about people beginning to understand what it is we do. I didn't say this in the beginning, and I think it bears mentioning. Agility, the founders of Agility are the people that started this whole cost per unit movement some
Love
30
that.
years ago. And
Yeah.
so for me, it's always an exciting thing to be a part, be with the people and the leadership that started something so effective a long time ago. And so for me, I'm excited in 2025 as we continue to grow that, as we continue to let people know about what it is that we're doing, as we continue to move into some new states and to engage with some new customers. I think if I could leave anybody with anything, if you're a distribution, a fulfillment leader, even light manufacturing, kitting, VAS, all those things, the what we do is so effective and it's good and great and wonderful, but it sounds big. And so I want people to understand that it's an easy entry.
Mm,
We're not complicated. We make things very simple. We start talking about engaging engineering, and people kind of start going, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! I already have those people." So I want people to understand that it is an easy, quick process to engage agility. It is a quick process to ramp through to a cost per unit model.
mhm,
So once we turn that program on, you see the savings start to go up, productivity starts to go up, quality goes up. We see so many good things that it sounds like it's more cumbersome than it is. It is not.
mhm.
Um, we are agile. We are ready to run. We are a nimble group. We make decisions quickly. And so I'm just excited. 2025 is, I think it's going to be a fantastic year. And I think people are finally starting to learn what we do and who we are.
Mhm.
We may be a 3-year-old company, but we have 30-year roots that started this whole cost per unit model that there's not a lot of folks out there doing it well right now. There's maybe 3 big leaders, and we're one of them.
Mhm.
And we started one of the other ones that's one of them. So, and they sold it to several years ago. But there's not a difficult barrier to entry. If you are a distribution leader and you have any kind of constraints, capacity
Mhm.
constraints, if you have you're watching the cost, the wages continue to increase, or you're going, I'm not getting the quality I need, I'm not getting what I need from my traditional staffing vendor. It is a very easy engagement to make a huge difference quickly.
All right.
So we're easy.
Well, good. Good. Easy to do business with. Always a winner, right?
Yes, that
Awesome.
that's the plan.
Look, well, thank you very much for coming on the show, the
Yeah, thanks
Warehouse
for
Underground.
having me.
You're very engaging. You answered all the questions. I appreciate that. I'm
did.
sure that this will not be our last interaction together.
No, I don't think it will be.
In
I'll
fact,
drag
I
you
hope.
out to the Atlanta Roundtable no matter what.
Yeah, yeah. No, I know I got to get out to that. I got to get out to that. But yeah, seriously, thanks again. I really appreciate you coming on, and I look forward to working with you in the future.
Thanks. And thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun. You were a wonderful host and you asked some really thought provoking questions. So I thank you for that.
Yeah, good. You got it. All
Yeah.
right. Well, I hope you have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
You as well. Thanks.
All right. Well, guys, that concludes the show today. Thank you very much for tuning in. Please follow up with Leah and iJility. It's a really cool company. There's some really good things there, some really good differentiating factors that I like. So for the Warehouse Underground, if you have not signed up for the community, please do that. And I will see you next time at the next podcast next year. Take care.